Say I'm the GOAT. I still look in the mirror like go hard.
Arrow, it's another Mental Monday for you guys today. Today, we're going to have a very simple video. We're just going to talk about how to study film and how to watch film. I understand this is a little bit of a difference for a lot of you first year players. You're like, film, we be watching film and I be falling asleep. Nah, man, film is very crucial into improving your performance. And another thing that's important for your performance is that workbook. Make sure you're getting the practice workbook below where you can really track your progress and become better daily and make sure you're becoming that player you need to be. So let's go into it. Why do we really watch film? Like, I understand a lot of first year players, or even if it's your like third year, but you're playing high school ball now, you're like, we really watch film. Film is really important. So film is really used to study your opponent or either study yourselves. And both are important because you may need to study your opponent for the week of the game, or you may need to study yourself because you're making the same mistakes at practice. The coach is telling you, but you don't really understand it. And sometimes it helps you really conceptualize what you're doing when you watch it. So our next point is, what are we really looking at when we're watching film? So like I said before, it really depends on what you're watching the film for. So if you're studying your opponent, you really want to pay attention to these three things. You want to pay attention to their alignment, their assignment, and how they attack. So perfect example here is, let's say we do play for UCLA and we're the linebacker, we're number 14, and we want to really pay attention and understand what this team does. So let's say we're watching Washington State and we're watching how well they do. Now our position is the same as number 14, but we're not 14. And we want to make sure that we're able to read their right motions and everything. So like the opponents that we may look at, is our responsibility may be B gap, where we're responsible for this gap right here, or we may be responsible for A gap. And what we want to pay attention to is this guard, because this guard is very important in terms of blocking B gap or A gap. And we want to pay attention to his movement. That's very important for a linebacker, because once you read his movement, you pretty much know where the play is going. Now, if he shoots off and he blocks this defensive lineman, you know it's a run play. But if he drops back, you know it's a pass. Now, the motion may set you off a little bit, but this is the first thing. This is the first thing you want to look at if you're a linebacker and that's your opponent. Now, as we see with the play, he moves off. You may be looking at 14 like, oh, this is my job, but your team may not do what they have 14 doing. So you want to pay attention to the guy that you're up against. Now, as you see the guy dropped back into pass coverage, now you will drop back into your zone. You will understand, okay, well, these guys, they have a funky motion going on, but I need to drop off to my zone. So you pay attention to your opponent's alignment, assignment, and how they attack. Now, watching that, you're like, oh, well, he's a decent pass blocker, and you want to make sure you drop into your zone. Now, when you're studying yourself, let's use the same example of 14. Let's say we are number 14. And we're studying ourselves. Okay, the guy comes in motion. Now I'm paying attention, like, okay, like the coach wants me to watch this guy coming in motion. As you see, 14 follows. You did your job. Now you're playing in no man's land, and you're really watching the guy. They don't really even go to him. It was just a motion to get you to open up the field a little bit. But you're paying attention to yourself and you're seeing things that you could do better. Now with seeing that, you're like, okay, well, next game, if a team does that, now I need to focus on making a play. Like, he's out of the play and the quarterback didn't even look his way. Now with stuff like that, I need to focus on making a play. So studying yourself and studying your opponent is very important. Now, how to study the film. We need to understand first that we got to get the film. Now, there's two ways you can either get film. A lot of times your school may have a huddle. You guys may have a huddle account. And if you have a huddle account and you're watching film, your coach is like, oh, well, watch the film on a huddle account. Go ahead, do that. Live your best life. Now, some teams don't have huddle accounts, and that's where you're going to have to go to the coach may have to ask for some film, or is there a possibility that you could watch the film somewhere else? But sometimes when coaches don't have the ability to film and they don't necessarily have the film, it could be tough because they're like, I don't even have this film to study the team. Now I could help. I could try to find a copy for you, but like I don't even have the film for this team. So you need to make sure that you're understanding the capabilities of your team. And worst come to worst, just ask your coach. The worst thing he could say is literally no. The worst thing he could say is like, bro, I don't even got it. And if he don't got it at that point, you start doing the research yourself. You try to look up on YouTube some film of your team, or you try to look up on YouTube like if there's highlights and they played against somebody, and try to get your film in and some work in that way. Now, you want to also find yourself or your opponent. Now, just like I said before, for 14, we're just focusing on where they're lining up and what we're doing. Now 14, he's literally watching a motion guy and he's just sitting there. It's simple. Now watching film is just simple. You literally want to just focus on if you're focusing on yourself or you're focusing on your opponent. If you're watching your opponent, watch how they line up. Watch little things that they may set off. Watch certain things that may give them giveaways for the play. And just try to study your opponent. But if you're studying yourself, just watch things that can help you make you better. And if you have trouble like tallying things that make you better or really keeping track of it, make sure you download that workbook below. That workbook is free. You just have to put in your email and it will be in your inbox. Peace.
Check this video out on the screen if you want to be mean on that green, or real on that field, or extort on that court. The No Baller Left Behind Act supports this video. You feel me?